Hi, I'm Will Lockamy, and he's Reed Lockamy. Welcome to the Iron Bowl Hour, or as we like to call it, the show that still can't believe that Alabama lost that game.
On tonight's show,
Missouri, very stylish end zone, and I
Right.
think that's going to be a good thing for the rest of the conference.
Well,
really
thank
help
you.
other stadiums
Yeah.
take it to the next level. Who's the most famous Auburn player that no one's ever heard of?
Cole Cubelic.
from atop Red Mountain at Vulcan Park and Museum, it's the Iron Bowl Hour.
Reed, it's time for another very chilly edition of Agree to Disagree.
It is going to be chilly. Is it going to be weird if we do this throughout the whole segment?
I can't imagine why.
Sure.
After a bye week, Auburn heads to Athens to take on Georgia. If Georgia wins this game against Auburn and beats Kentucky the following week, they'll be in the SEC championship game. However, if they don't win, should Georgia start looking for a new coach? Reed, sadly, I think it is time that Georgia will have to start looking for a new coach if they happen to lose the game, because if you don't go to the SEC championship, the program's already a bit stale as it is.
Yeah, but wait a second. You just said if you don't go to the SEC championship,
Correct,
which
yeah.
certainly Georgia will. So Mark Richt is safe. Listen, we talked about this. Auburn, up and down team. This is going to be one of their down weeks. Check the calendar. It's going to be a
Right.
down week for them. They lose to Georgia in Athens. Georgia goes, represents the East. You can't fire that guy.
Reed, let's pretend like Auburn has a chance here, and they do, by the way. So say Auburn wins the game, South Carolina ends up beating Florida, going to the SEC championship. Mark Richt cannot
Listen,
possibly
what-
stay. It's a
what
Tommy
kind of
Tuberville
crazy
situation.
world are you living in? South Carolina beats Florida. What are you talking? Listen to yourself. You've got Georgia losing to Auburn and South Carolina beating Florida.
Right,
You
yes.
you understand what's happening with Marcus Lattimore? Yes.
Right.
Okay. So.
That's
listen,
still a two-loss team.
No, this is too many ifs. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. Georgia is going to represent the East in the SEC championship game. Mark Richt is safe for another year. Also, let's point this out. You're forgetting that no longer is it even about how many games your team has won and if
Right.
you won championships and things of that nature, right?
not?
No, not anymore. I know it was just a couple of years ago, but remember, there's a new standard in college football, Will. And the
Okay.
question is, has your team had some sort of horribly embarrassing scandal or controversy that has brought the whole, level of respect for your university down to the basement level? And if the answer is no, and that is the case with Georgia and Mark Richt, then hey, good news, you're safe.
Yeah.
A couple more years.
I'm not really sure what kind of major scandals you're referring to.
Well, there have
Reed.
been some out there. My point is this. Mark Richt has had some difficulties here and there. Sure,
Right.
he's got a jerk for a defensive coordinator or
Yeah.
whatever, but for the most part, he's going to be in good shape. He's a nice guy. People like him. He's winning enough ball games. Rough start to the beginning of the year. Look what they've done since then, though. They haven't dropped a single game since those opening two.
So how many mediocre seasons do you think Georgia will put up with?
Without a major scandal?
Yeah.
7 more.
7 more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Last week, Alabama lost the game of the century in overtime versus LSU. Disheartened Tide fans awoke the next day to find that their team only dropped 1 spot in the BCS. Will everything fall into place for a rematch game versus LSU? All right, well, this is an easy one. We know what the BCS is set up to do. It's pit the 2 best teams against one another at the end of the season,
Right.
and the 2 best teams are clearly Alabama and LSU. That is what is going to happen. People won't stand for any other results, so yes.
So you think Oklahoma State and Stanford are going to lose their
Oh,
ball?
most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so with that said, and then you feel comfortable with Alabama and LSU playing again. They've already played, Reed. We know this, right?
Look, well, once again, we're talking about the BCS. It's not about what feels comfortable.
Okay.
It's not about what feels right.
Right.
It's not about what is reasonable.
Stop,
or
you're making me
rational,
agree with you.
right? Yeah,
Stop.
it's about pitting the 2 best teams against one another. It doesn't matter if Alabama and LSU have played, 10 times throughout the regular season. Of course, we all know that Alabama would win 9 of those 10 games. It's about, are they the 2 best teams in the nation? Yes, they are. It will happen.
Okay, here's the thing. The BCS is supposed to pit number 1 and number 2 against, or the 2 best teams against
Right,
each other.
yeah.
And I do think that LSU and Alabama are the 2 best teams, but the
Mm-hmm.
BCS makes no sense, Reed. And that's why there's no sense in these teams playing again. They've already played. LSU won in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Tuscaloosa. If this would have been in Baton Rouge, maybe there's more of an argument here, but the Alabama lost at home.
Yeah, well, I've got a brick wall over here at Vulcan that I'd like for you to argue with later, because that's basically, you're spinning your wheels here, right? It's not about what makes sense, it's about what will happen and what should happen. Listen, the only thing that's standing in between Alabama and LSU rematching would be, like you said, an Oklahoma State. They're definitely going to lose to Oklahoma. There's just no doubt about it. Listen, Oklahoma State is a team that's sort of shaky this year. They've been winning some games, but they've had some close calls. They're going to lose that game. That's
Okay.
a big game pressure's on. Stanford Stanford, you know what happens at the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 or Pac-18 or whatever it's called now. A team gets ahead, just like USC a couple of years ago, drops a game they're not supposed to lose at all, right? So no matter how big they'll be favored in the game, they're going to drop a game.
Hey, now look, we didn't even talk about Boise yet.
We're not going to talk about Boise.
Oh, no, we should talk about them. They're in the same.
No, listen, you've heard what Greg McElroy has to say about that. They don't have any place in a championship game. So,
but Reed, they're in the same division as LSU and Alabama. There's no sense. Why can they play in Division I football and not have a chance to play for the championship?
No, I'm not going to talk about it.
They should have a chance. Over the weekend, the SEC welcomed Missouri as the league's 14th member. Missouri will join the league effective July 1st, 2012 and compete in all SEC sports that season. What does Missouri bring to the conference? Reed, they bring nothing but the number 14, that's it. This is the most uninteresting team I think the SEC could have picked to join the SEC.
Well, listen, I think you're being a little bit of a Debbie Downer about it. And listen, I'm excited about Missouri coming into the conference, if that ever happens. When is that news supposed to break?
Reed, it broke last week.
No, because last week was the big game.
I promise you, on Sunday. No, it was on Sunday. It was the day after the big game.
Penn State not know? Are you?
I promise you, Missouri is now.
That's official now?
No, it's going to start 2012, yeah. I promise you.
Okay, well then that's good news to me, and here's why. I like their end zones. Have you ever noticed they've got the diamond pattern in the end zone, and that's a good thing. Look at a lot of the end zones in our conference right now. You got Kentucky doesn't have end zones on that field. We all know that. I meant Tennessee with the checker, and it's obnoxious and all this.
Right.
Missouri, very stylish end zone, and I think that's going to be a good thing for the rest of the conference.
Well,
really help other stadiums take it to the next level.
Thank you for proving my point that Missouri brings absolutely nothing to the conference. Rita, we've got a cameraman named Tom who's from Missouri. He doesn't even care about Missouri.
Tom is from Missouri, and I'm proud of him for admitting that. It took 3 or 4 weeks into production before he mentioned it. But yeah, and he doesn't even care about it. Okay, well,
nothing. They bring nothing.
Okay,
why not West Virginia, Reed? Why not Florida State? Plus, they're putting them in the East. This makes no sense.
No, that is ridiculous. We talked about that on the show before. But you don't want West Virginia. Those are people who set couches on fire. They marry their cousins. They throw cans of food at you. This is not
still interesting things, though.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not who we want in the conference. Missouri is going to bring in some markets. St. Louis, right? That's a classy town, right?
What? St. Louis is near Missouri?
I think. Is that right? I think that's right.
No idea.
Something like that. The point is this. This will be good expansion. I know it's weird that we're expanding west and we're going to put them in these. That's stupid. But remember, we only have to deal with that for 1 year, right? Remember, their first season will be 2012. World ends at the end of the 2012 season. So just 1 year Missouri in the conference. We can put up with that and fancy end zones.
St. Louis?
Stay tuned for more of the Iron Bowl Hour.
Reed, it's time for rapid fire questions with Cole Cubelic, former center from Auburn and now media mogul.
There you go. By how many points must you beat Alabama in order to be a better team than them?
1.
Finish this sentence. The only chance Auburn has of beating Alabama this year is if Alabama
shows up.
Oh, okay. As a center, how long does it take to get used to having a quarterback's hands all up in your business?
Immediately.
Wow.
What's the difference between Alabama and Auburn?
Class.
He didn't say which way that went.
Take that either way.
All right, give us 3 adjectives you would use to describe Nick Saban.
Short. Mad. Rich.
Who's uglier, Snooki or Harvey Updike?
Updike.
How many games will Gus Malzahn win at Ole Miss next year?
0.
Okay. Did last weekend's game really just prove that Alabama is so good they can even beat Alabama, the best team in the country?
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen Paul Feinbaum and Mr. Burns in the same place at the same time?
No, I've never seen an animated Feinbaum.
Who's the most famous Auburn player that no one's ever heard of?
Cole Cubelic.
LSU fans are to corn dogs as Alabama fans are to
Elephants.
There you go.
Very nice,
Those were
Cole.
good answers.
Yeah, fantastic. To the elevator.
Indeed.
Cole Cubelic, former center from Auburn and now a radio show host among many other things. Thanks for sticking with us.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, right out of the gate, need to find out what people are really curious about. Why do you hate Auburn so much?
It's one of those things that's really strange. We talk about it on my show often of what fan base hates me more, Alabama because I played at Auburn, or Auburn because I don't pick Auburn for every game.
Right.
You know, I try to be a realist and try to play it and talk about it how I see it. And some fans don't like that very much.
No, apparently not.
No, it's a lot of hate going around.
All right, so speaking of Auburn and games coming up and trying to pick what's going to happen, big one against Georgia this weekend, then what should be a cupcake against Samford. Of course, you never can tell with Auburn this year. And then what can only be some sort of slaughter against Alabama. How do you see these games playing out exactly the rest of the season?
We'll go to Samford first. You say with Auburn you can never tell this year. You look at Auburn's schedule, the teams that they've lost to have a combined 2 losses. I think Auburn's really kind of taken care of business this season as far as they've defeated the teams they're supposed to defeat, and they've pretty much lost to the teams that most people would have expected them to lose to. I think it's, as far as I'm concerned, kind of gone as expected, really. The Georgia game, boy, so much more on the line for Georgia than Auburn. But it's strange because the visiting team has had a lot of success in this rivalry. I have a formula. You guys might have heard about it. We call it the Rubik's Cubelic that I put together to pick college football winners. To make it simple, it's a little more dynamic than this: rushing yards, turnovers, penalties. Georgia has the advantage in turnover margin. Georgia has a slight advantage in penalties. Rushing yards, Auburn rushes for more. They rush for about 185 a game. However, Georgia only gives up 91 rushing yards a game, and they're getting healthier and more guys back on defense. Some were suspended, some missed time due to injury. If Mike Dyer doesn't get going in this Georgia game, I don't think Auburn can win. We've seen Auburn go away from him a little bit. When he gets 15, 17 carries, the offense isn't near as successful as when he gets 25 to 40 carries. I think he needs to be in that 30 to 35 carry range for Auburn to be successful, especially with Mosley making his 3rd career start. Emory Blake is back, kind of healthy. T. Reed apparently is as healthy as he's been all season. Am I a little bit too extensive for you here?
Who has the player's name?
No,
That's
impressive.
yeah.
But I tell you, playing over there and having that team, having a trip to Atlanta on the line with what they faced, the adversity they faced in the beginning of the season, here we go. I'm probably going to take the Georgia Bulldogs.
Of course you are. Of course. Now, you say Auburn's kind of lived up to everyone's expectations and done what you thought they would do. Did you think they would have to have an onside kick to beat Utah State?
No, but I thought they would beat Utah State, and they did that. They defeated Utah State. At the end of the
interesting interpretation.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's a win or a loss. We talked about that up top moments ago, kind of making fun of the other side of the state, that sometimes a loss can still be perceived as a win, which I don't necessarily believe. You win or you lose at the end of the day, and I think Auburn has won the games that they're supposed to win, and they've probably lost the games that they're supposed to lose. The teams that were more talented, that had better players returning, have defeated Auburn. That's just kind of the way it is. It's a rebuilding process. You lose 24, 25 seniors. You have some guys dismissed from the team. Heisman Trophy winner, Lombardi Award winner, #1 overall pick in the draft, a couple first-rounders. It's going to be difficult to replace.
Cole, tell me this. Auburn is expected to get killed by Alabama. They also were, though, in 2009, and they ended up only barely losing that game. How do you think it'll play out this season?
Well, I think we won't know until this weekend against Mississippi State, because mentally and emotionally, so much went into that game against LSU. How does this team bounce back? I think we would all agree going into this season, Alabama was championship or bust. It really and truly, minimum SEC championship.
I think it's still championship or bust at this point.
Well, then it's a bust because they lost to LSU, so you can throw that out.
Hold your horses on that little Cole.
No, I don't need to hold my horses on that. It's you know, you can wave your magic wand and try to mix up a magical potion, but at the end of the day, LSU's undefeated. Alabama has a loss. I don't think the national media wants to see 2 SEC teams. We talked about it at SEC Media Days before the season, that the national media was kind of beginning to move away from this SEC dominance a little bit. I think there's a lot of voters that right now they think it's a good story and they think it's fun, but when we get towards the end of the season, they're going to think to themselves, you know, I don't need to see that game again, #1, and this SEC dominance has gone a little bit too far. We need to potentially put a stop to it.
All right, let's not talk about SEC dominance, though, and SEC good teams. Let's talk about Mississippi. What do you make? You mentioned Mississippi State earlier. Alabama's got a big game against, well, what now could look like a big game, seeing how they rebound against the LSU loss. What do you make of Dan Mullen at Mississippi State?
Not very successful.
Is it because it's Mississippi State?
No, it's because he has, 2 SEC wins in his tenure in 2 years. So You tell me his signature win.
No, I didn't know he'd won it all.
Yeah, I think he's beaten Ole Miss, but
He
that's not like
dominates
a win,
out of
right?
conference, and those are subpar opponents out of conference. Even though La Tech took them to double overtime, a win's a win. However, they did get the victory. You go back, this is a Mississippi State team that just ended a 7-game SEC losing streak. On the other side of the state, Ole Miss has lost 12 consecutive conference games. That's disgusting, and that's the reason that Houston Nutt is being dismissed or resigning, whatever you want to call it. But back to Mississippi State, this weekend against Alabama, it's just going to be interesting to see how Alabama bounces back because, like I said, so much went into this game against LSU. Championship or bust, game of the century, game of the galaxy, whatever you want to call it. There was 2 weeks of hype, 2 weeks of build-up, and not just to lose it, but the way they lost it, extremely disappointing. Probably felt like they should have, and I don't like to use that word when talking about football, at least had a chance to win that game. You go to overtime, you've got a chance to win. So how do they bounce back? And they're pretty beat up as well. Mays is nicked up. Kirkpatrick hurt himself on the flop against the Honey Badger. So, yeah, we'll see how they bounce back.
Stay tuned for more of the Iron Bowl Hour.
Welcome back to the Iron Bowl Hour. We're still joined by Cole Cubelic, former center from Auburn.
All right, so Cole, earlier you mentioned that you think Alabama's national title hopes are, buried and dead for this season, but a lot of people don't agree with you. What do you make about the potential for a rematch? Do you think that's something that we should even look at as a possibility?
No, I think if Alabama gets in, it won't be a rematch. I think Alabama will just get in. Obviously, best they can do now is most likely a 3-way tie. If Arkansas were to defeat LSU, then we would actually have to go to the very bottom tiebreaker, which is BCS rankings. And then if there's 2 teams within 5 places of each other, you have to go to another tiebreaker, which I believe is some sort of opponent record against common opponents. I don't know what it is.
Wow.
If Alabama could sneak into the SEC championship that way, they'll defeat Georgia. Or maybe South Carolina, if they back themselves into the SEC championship game, they could get to the title game then. I don't see a rematch happening. I said on my show last week before the game that if Alabama lost this game in a similar fashion to the way the game turned out, that they did not deserve a rematch because it was at home. It was at Bryant-Denny. If LSU would have lost a similar game, the way the game was played out, I would at least listen to the argument of we need to see that game again. What are we going to prove by seeing this game played on a neutral field? If Alabama wins, who's the national champion?
And of course, we say neutral. It'd be in New Orleans. Wouldn't be much of a. Oh, I'm sorry. If it was to be a rematch, it wouldn't be much of a neutral field anyway.
Yeah, no, boy, I thought maybe you'd have a more optimistic answer as an Alabama fan, but apparently not.
Right.
Now, Cole,
My hate is spread around all schools.
Now, Cole, Auburn's been recruiting well, but this year they're pretty thin. When do you think it's going to finally pick back up and Auburn's going to become the team that maybe they were last year?
Team that they were last year, there's so many components that go into that. Leadership, veterans, guys who have been around, played, and then obviously dominant figures. You really had a dominant figure on offense and defense that at times carried that football team, and more than just a few times. So those players could be once in a generation. We just don't know. You cannot replace them. You can't re-recruit them. To get back to a team like last year, I don't really see that happening in the near future, but what I do see happening is maybe a team with more talent spread around the entire unit. So say maybe more B plus A minus players rather than 2 A plus plus players.
Right.
I definitely could see that happening. I think it'll happen next year. I think this team will be close again next season.
Huh.
All right, Cole, kickers. What's wrong with these people?
They're the worst, huh?
You know, it's, I don't know. What do you say?
You've been on a team with kickers. Do you consider them to be
See,
part of the team?
that's the thing.
were they on the team?
Are they on the team?
Right.
Technically, they. We used to talk to kickers that said they play touch football over in the stadium while we're practicing and
I'm
playing.
impressed you talked to them.
Playing Sega Genesis in the locker room.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how
Old
old I
school.
am. So, are they a part of the team? I don't know. I can't answer that. They travel with the team and they get in games occasionally, but a part of the team, I don't really know.
It's a sad week for kickers, needless to say.
Well, it depends on what teams you like.
Yeah.
Yes, it might.
LSU kickers had a pretty good game, I'd say.
Yeah,
too
I feel
shabby.
bad for the kid. I mean, they set him up. He was never in a good position to make a field goal. Still, you'd think he'd make at least one of those.
Well, here's what I like about what Alabama did. They didn't just isolate one kicker as the problem.
No.
They spread it around, let several of their kickers have bad games, and that was a good idea.
So you say he wasn't in a good position to
Well,
make
they
a
were
kick.
long
I mean,
field
were they shooting bow and arrows at him or throwing hatchets?
The laces were
He was
turned
on the
in.
field. They snapped it. He kicked it. That's a pretty good chance to make a
From
kick.
like a mile away.
And he wasn't in the opposite end zone.
Yeah, okay. Cole, thanks so much for
Kick
being
the
here.
ball
Yeah.
through the uprights. Pretty easy.
Stay tuned. Up next, it's time for the Innisfree Trivia Minute. Reed, before we head to Innisfree, we need to congratulate Rachel Carden. She correctly answered last week's trivia question. It was 7. That was the number of years that Alabama and Auburn had alternated winners in the Iron Bowl.
Nice.
Yeah.
Viewers, don't forget, you too can be a winner just like Rachel by correctly answering this week's trivia question and submitting your answer either to the email address or phone number at the bottom of the screen.
Reed, I'm thirsty and hungry, so let's go to Innisfree.
All right.
Hey, I'm Nick,
Hi, I'm Irma.
and this is your Innisfree Trivia Minute.
Your question this week is, how many Iron Bowls have been decided by 1 point?
A, 8, B, 3, or C, 6?
Good luck!
That is all the time we have for tonight. We'd like to thank Cole the Bam Cubelic for joining us.
No doubt. And don't forget to stick around. Coming up next is that show that comes on after this show.
For the Iron Bowl Hour, I'm Will Lockamy.
And I'm Reed Lockamy.
Roll Eagle, Reed.
War Tide, Will.
Vulcan Park and Museum, home to the world's largest cast iron statues, spectacular views, and indoor and outdoor exhibits. For more information, log on to www.visitvulcan.com.
Hi, I'm Will Lockamy. He's Reed Lockamy.
Sorry.
That's funny. We'll get it. Welcome to the Iron Bowl Hour, or as we like to call it, the show that can't believe that Alabama lost that game.
All right.